Welcome to RHI's Sociable City Interviews, where we meet with global thought leaders on nightlife and the social economy. Today we are here with Rose Burrows, manager, dedicated noise team with the City of Toronto.
Hey, Rose, great to see you.
Hey, Jim, good to see you too.
Yeah. So, quite a lot of changes have occurred since we were last in Seattle.
Oh my God, when we were in Seattle, all this stuff was breaking out
Mhm.
because COVID first came in Seattle. So Brian Kelly and I had no clue what was going on, and we were just kind of going with the flow and listening to everybody, doing media reports and stuff from Seattle. So it was lots has happened, Jim, lots.
Yeah, lots of change. But what was happening prior to COVID in your nightlife districts? And maybe just basically introduce us to the role that you have. Just to expand on it a little bit more beyond your title. I know that there was a noise team that was created. And was this in response to a bylaw change, or was this all happened before COVID, right?
Correct. That's right, Jim. So just to give you a bit of history. So my name is Rose Burrows, and I am the dedicated noise team manager. So what happened was in 2019, the noise bylaw was amended. It had not been amended since early 2000, so it was really antiquated. So it was amended to modernize it. And with the amended bylaw came the creation of a dedicated team to deal with noise complaints citywide. Hence, the dedicated noise team was born. That team consists of myself. I have 3 supervisors, and I have 24 bylaw officers, and I have 2 support staff. My officers and supervisors work 7 days a week, and our coverage is from 6 a.m. till 2 a.m. So we're very, we have a wide range of coverage, and that was due to the stats, the data on times and dates as to when the noise or sounds or complaints are coming in.
Now, you said till 2 a.m., but doesn't nightlife go on beyond 2 a.m.?
Certainly it does. Now, October 1st is when we basically were born, and the new bylaw, the switch flipped, and the bylaw came into effect. So we had from October to St. Patty's Day, middle of March 2020, to actually delve into the new bylaw. Of course, we all received training from an external engineering consulting firm, and training on the new bylaw, training on the measurements. But the interesting thing is that so we didn't really have a chance to test the bylaw. Why? Because COVID hit and everything was suspended. All the City of Toronto services, everything but essential services, were suspended so that we could put all hands on deck to deal with the emergency regulations from the province. So although the bylaw, our hours are 6 a.m. till 2, we didn't really have a chance to test that bylaw. It's not until late 2020, early 2021 when we started back full force to deal with the noise bylaw. As to nightlife, well, Jim, there hasn't really been much nightlife. That's why our services were suspended, because there was no complaints from noise from venues. There was no venues. Everything was shut down. So we were in the parks, us and all our other colleagues throughout the city, the different bylaw regulators. We were just in the parks trying to, educate the public and keep the right-of-way regulation reopening, the COVID reopening and other regulations moving along.
So now there was at least some expanded outdoor seating. I know that there were some streets that were basically made into kind of streeteries with outdoor seating and dining. And a lot more people were working from home, I would imagine, in Toronto, just like everywhere else. Did these types of kind of reconfigurations bring some issues before your team in terms of sound with the outdoor dining, and did that extend into later hours, or was there a curtailment of the hours?
So that's a good question. So Cafe TO, it's a program that was put on by the city, Transportation, Economic Development. And that was the expansion of cafes in the curb lane. And so that actually, it helped to add to the mosaic, to the vibrancy of the city of Toronto. It was really nice to see these patios and people dining, complying with social distancing and dining outside and having music. The fallout of that was my noise team received complaints. Why? Because, like you said, a lot of people were working from home, and with working from home comes, good and bad. The convenience of working from home, the convenience of not having to commute. You can get to meetings because they're right then and there. However, the fallout was that people have, I found, a heightened sensitivity towards noise, meaning that now they're home, cooped up or not, and everything seems to be bothering them. So we started getting a lot more complaints, like a lot. Our saving grace was the construction industry. So the province had put in regulations that recently expired on October 7th, and that was to allow construction 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So our complaints were predominantly amplified sound. So that was resulting from the patios, the people noise. We don't really deal with people noise, but we do deal with amplified sound. So after October 7th, of course, the weather is still half decent. There's, heaters on patios. Our complaints just hit the roof because then we were starting to get all kinds of construction complaints. So yeah, there's good and bad about the working from home. The good thing is it helped the economy because a lot of the venues, as you know, are suffering. Businesses, even now with this new strain of virus, people are having to, there's a whole new direction now. And I'm afraid there might be more regulations and restrictions put in. We're just waiting to see how that plays out. But the patios, yeah, they created quite the challenge for us, and balancing the residents' piece and the businesses trying to recover from what devastation that they've had because of the pandemic.
Now, did some of the venues that were not able to have live performances indoors move them outdoors, or have more? Did you see kind of a movement into taking over spaces and then adding the kind of activity that would have been indoors but outdoors?
So I'll say that on these patios, they were not allowed to have live music, but because of the city and their drive for live music, what they did was they took 3 wards in Toronto and they piloted live music on the patios, and they were allowed. There was some amendments made to the regulations and zoning to permit that, and that was in consultation with the BIA and other business partners and AGCO, of course, because of the alcohol permitting. And those actually did very well. So what happened was, I think it was a couple months ago, council reviewed how these 3 piloted wards in the downtown core, how they fared with respect to the patios and the live music. And they've now extended it to the 2021 season because it was very, it proved very fruitful. Now, we didn't get a lot of complaints from those, thankfully. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what 2021 brings. The good thing is we have a really good relationship, the noise team, economic development, the music sector office, and the counselor's offices. So if we hear of any performances or otherwise, we always try and do a little bit of outreach, because I've always said when I attend the nighttime economy meetings that education and communication is key. So the more you get the word out there, the better it is, that people know and people will embrace it.
So now, where's the status of, because there were a number of large music venues, DJ-driven venues in particular, but also live music in the city prior to COVID. How many of those businesses are, I know that there was a lot of development that was coming in, which would have taken away some of those venues. With construction, they were gonna basically eliminate the buildings where those venues were and build new, high rise. And that was a concern that whole nighttime social economy was gonna be lost. Did COVID really help to accelerate that change where some of those larger venues are no longer in existence? And how well did they fare if they couldn't have indoor entertainment? Are any of them still uh, looking forward to revitalizing and coming back again, or have many of them just given up?
That's interesting that you say that. That is very valid. From the last time you were in Toronto, which is a few years back, and then you did the tour and the nighttime tour, there has been a lot of changes. If you look at the piloted area, which was along King Street and Dundas, but specifically King, there you wouldn't, Jim, you wouldn't recognize it. There's so much change in development. There's a lot of restaurants and venues that have disappeared because to make room for condos, parking lots have disappeared. Condos are starting to have more mixed use. So we are seeing condos that are coming up, and then on the main floor, they have restaurants. You have to comply with zoning. So we can't just have nightclubs in any and everywhere, especially in these mixed use. So it has to comply with zoning. But there is one venue that that actually, kind of thought outside the box, and that is a nightclub, and it's down in the Portlands. It's called Rebel and Cabana. They have a huge indoor entertainment location, and it's down in the Portlands. What they did was they put a stage out in their parking lot, and they complied with all the requirements, and they started to broadcast movies outside and concerts. So they were having concerts that would come through. It was like a drive-in, right? It's called City View. And even with that, there was still some disturbance and some noise complaints. But most of the clubs, Jim, honestly, they've disappeared. Like a lot of clubs have disappeared. And they just started to open up down on the King Street. In King Street, there is still some nightclubs, but this latest strain of virus has really threw a curveball into a lot. So I can't really say whether they've successfully been up and running. I think they've had a lot of challenges.
Now, sound is often a big issue in a lot of the cities that we're working with or that come to our summit. And everybody's always trying to just change their regulations. But it seems to me like what you did was not only upgrade your bylaw, but you also created this dedicated team, this unit. Now, it must be a significant cost to have so many people working in this unit. What's the justification from the economic development point of view that would make other cities consider, well, maybe we need to do something similar?
So prior to the noise team, there was the antiquated bylaw, and noise complaints were still being dealt with. They were being actioned by bylaw officers and investigation services. So I would say that the rationale for having a dedicated noise team was so it was still being dealt with in the 4 districts in Toronto. So we have city council, we have the 4 community councils, and they're geographic. So it would be east, west, north, and south. So prior to the dedicated noise team, complaints were being addressed by officers in those 4 districts, which was actually, kind of better because it was filtering. Like our noise team was operating out of 1 location until the beginning of November, which is very recently. And then we disbanded to the district offices. But the hours of operation are key. So what happened is when council approved the new amended bylaw, they also approved extended hours of service because they looked at the data. Of course, they went and did extensive community consultation, both with industry, with the public, with residents, with community groups, with BIAs, and that formed the basis of having a dedicated team. It formed the rationale of for the hours, for the 7-day-a-week operation, because the noise bylaw is now broken into components. So we have provisions such as amplified sound, construction, loading and unloading, motor vehicle, stationary sources. So there's different components within the bylaw, whereas before it wasn't so modernized, it wasn't so broken down, right? So hence why I think it depends. I know we did look at other cities. Like I wasn't involved in this. I'm more the operation, and I came in after the bylaw was passed and after the noise team was created. But our MLNS policy staff, our policy team, they were heavily involved in the consultations and the writing of the bylaw with legal, and they definitely reached out to other cities, US and otherwise, to compare what they were doing. Since then, I've actually been consulted by other cities within the Greater Toronto Area and outskirts, asking about the noise bylaw, and even places in Canada, and saying, hey, Mississauga, we want to do a noise bylaw. Could you give us some of the information that you had done? So of course I would pull the policy reports and share.
It'd be great if you could share that with me, and we could make it available. But we're running out of time here. But my question to you is, what I don't understand is, so what you said by modernizing it, instead of having like a blanket decibel level for all circumstances, what I understand you saying is you created different segments that might have variation. So construction might have different sound standards and hours and other conditions versus loading zones or entertainment areas. So is that what you're saying, that the bylaw was really much more of a surgical approach that recognized that sound from construction is generated differently and impacts people differently than sound that comes from loading areas or nightlife venue areas?
So yes and no. So the previous bylaw, the regulations in the previous bylaw, they were more subjective. Okay, so they were subjective, whereas the new rules are based more on objective and measurable criteria, such as decibel limits. Like for amplified sound, you're going to take decibel limits. There's going to be decibel limits. You're going to take sound measurements. For another provision, the motorcycle noise, we use again, decibel limits for that. Stationary sources, decibel limits. But then there's other provisions such as construction that is time related, time restrictions, loading and unloading, time restrictions. You know what I'm going to do? The noise bylaw is very dry, but it's not very long. It's only like 12 pages. And we have an education brochure that we have worked on with our strategic communications staff. And that is what we have shared with the public and members of council. So I'm going to share that with you as well as the other document that you asked for.
That'd be great. That'd be great. All right, now I have one final question for you. Considering everything that you've seen around you, and hopefully we'll be out of this COVID sometime soon, but how do you think the Toronto nightlife and the way people socialize will change in the next 18 months? So if we had a conversation 18 months from now, and I asked you, how have things changed in how people are socializing? What do you think the future looks like?
I think the future is going to be, people are going to have to readjust. I've noticed within my own, social structure, everybody's become very complacent, very home, everything is easy. It's all social media. It's all at your fingertips, entertainment, movies, food, everything has become, Amazon has probably, tripled, quadrupled their business because of everything coming to the home. People are going to have to start getting used to getting out there, getting away from their comfortable home environment and just kind of branching out. I notice people are going out, but they're going kind of staying within their little geographical bubble, their little geographical area. I think it's going to be challenging for the new norm, and it's going to have to, the city and the venue operators, like I feel really bad for all the businesses because they have really suffered. Like it's Christmas time and we can't even take our staff out, right? Because of all the regulations and rules and it is sad, but I think there has to be a concerted effort to breathe life back into the city and into the people themselves, because I've noticed that people become very complacent. And I remember from all our nighttime economy discussions and RHI, how you have your jingles and your mingles, and everybody is turned into like a blob. Even the younger kids, like I have a 12-year-old, and God, to get her away from any electronics or just a sedentary lifestyle, it's hard. People are doing aerobics and yoga and stuff via Zoom. So it's going to take a concerted effort for people to get out of their comfort zone and just, start moving, start becoming vibrant, start living again.
Well, that's a great summary. Well, this has been wonderful, Rose. I really appreciate your time. And I wish you a good holiday season, but most importantly, I wish you a good future.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks a lot for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thanks.
All the best to you and your family for Christmas.
Okay, bye-bye.